Good evening. Welcome to the November 1st, 2021 meeting of the Stillwater City Council. This time I will call the meeting to order, and I'll ask that you all stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, this time I'm going to ask Brady Moore to come up and introduce a new member of our team here at the city.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm excited to introduce to you tonight Jeff Matthews. He's our new Director of Community Development. Jeff brings to Stillwater 21 years of experience with the City of Edmond. There he was involved in the residential and commercial growth over the last 2 decades. Kind of fun fact, Jeff is also CLEAT certified. He's done 8 years of law enforcement. Jeff has already hit the ground running in his 3 weeks here. He's met with so many in the building and development community. And so, yeah, we again are so pleased to have Jeff as our new Director of Community Development, and he's already a great fit here with the City of Stillwater.
Thank you so much. I'm honored and privileged to be a part of the City of Stillwater. I look forward to great things to come. I know there's always room for continued improvement, and I look forward to things that we're going to do. But I'm excited to be here and just want to say thank you for welcoming me.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Great to have you, Jeff. Thank you. All right, that takes us to the consent docket. I'm going to ask to have item D removed from the consent docket. Any other items, councilors?
Motion to approve the consent docket minus item D.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. With a vote of 4-0, the consent docket is approved minus item D. That takes us to public comment on items not scheduled for public hearings tonight. I have 2 speakers. First up, Todd Smith.
I just wanted to let you know that silence is not compliance regarding masks. I know that you're still wanting to do it. That's your thing. I just want to let you know that when you walk around, you're not seeing a lot of people masked. That not believing in it. If you want to wear a mask, great, wear a mask. If you want to wear 3, that's great, wear 3. But a mandate, just not the way to go. I don't ever hear anybody talk about anything but masks and vaccines. I have not heard anybody, especially our medical professional, say, look at your vitamin D levels, get them checked. The majority of people that have severe COVID issues have low vitamin D, very low. I haven't heard anybody say, get out and lose some weight. Obesity is one of the major comorbid conditions that affects severe COVID. But I don't hear any of that. I hear control, compliance. Shut up, sit down, and do what we say. Do a little more leading. So that's all I want to say.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Just to be clear, there's not a mask mandate on the meeting agenda tonight for anybody who was wondering. Next up, we have John Bartley. Do I have to put this hat on now? Is that what you wanted to do?
Yes. John Bartley, 623 South Lewis, Stillwater, Oklahoma. I asked to have that item removed from the consent agenda so we could discuss meeting schedules, mainly because Mondays, there are a lot of playoff baseball games on Mondays. And in fact, there was an important one just 2 weeks ago.
Was there?
There was.
I was busy here.
You were busy here, so you couldn't see your Red Sox beat my Astros in Game 2.
It was fun.
That was fun for you until 5 days later.
Not so fun.
And so, not so much fun for you. But I really would like you to look at that meeting agenda. And does meeting on first and third and fourth Monday really allow council the time to be able to watch playoff games, much like the ones where the Astros knocked the Red Sox out?
Thank you so much.
Any
there anything
questions,
else
Mr.
you'd like to
Mayor?
comment? Counselors, any questions for?
Do we get discussion now?
Congratulations to your Astros, by the way.
Thank
Even though
you.
I've been very busy and wasn't able to keep up very much, but and I will just conclude by saying, go Braves.
Oh, well, I just want to say thank you, Mr. Mayor. We did have a bet, and you owned it, and you did it
And
well.
I'm wearing this hat for another 12 seconds until you sit down.
I want it before I leave. I need it tomorrow night.
Oh, okay. Here, you can have it
I
right
can
now.
have it right now.
We did have a small wager, and I lost, and therefore you guys got to have a little fun at this meeting tonight. Thank you, Mr. Bartley. All right, so items removed from consent docket. I will make a motion to approve the schedule in item D as it's drafted, regardless of the baseball implications.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve item D from the consent docket. Please vote. With a vote of 4-0, that item is approved. That was fun. All right, item 7, public hearings. First up is item A, receive public comment regarding a request for map amendment to rezone properties addressed as 2003 West 6th Avenue and 610 South McFarland Street from residential multifamily RMI to office, or excuse me, from RMI and office to commercial shopping zoning. This is CC-21-201. Kimberly, did we have good notice?
Yes, we do.
Mr. Harkins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Ryan Harkins, Community Development. This is a map amendment request to rezone property from RMI and O to commercial shopping. The subject properties in question are inside the purple hatch pattern here. You can see this is at the south side of 6th Avenue at 6th and McFarland, directly south of Westwood Elementary School. Subject properties in this aerial, as we look north, are inside the red polygon. You can see a parking lot as well as an existing building to the north. That's further illuminated in the street view, so this would be looking to the northwest across the parking lot and in toward the office professional building. And then this would be looking toward McFarland from McFarland and 6th to the southwest. The existing zoning map indicates the north property being zoned office, the south property being zoned RMI, as well as office to the east, public because of the school to the north, and then RT and RSS to the south and west. The closest commercial shopping zoning property in this area would be 520 feet approximately to the west, or roughly 2 blocks. However, the future land use element of the comprehensive plan indicates commercial along the 6th Avenue corridor through this part of the community. And that's further indicated by the close-up showing the subject property inside the black hatch pattern. The zoning comparison chart shows the differences between each of the two existing zoning districts as well as what is proposed. While the applicant has not indicated a specific use they are looking for, one of the questions that came up in the Planning Commission was, would a dispensary be allowed at this location? And the answer is no, because of its proximity to the elementary school. With that being said, questions of staff?
Counselors, any questions?
Just as a reminder, what is the distance requirement from schools with regards to marijuana dispensaries, liquor stores, et cetera?
OMMA requires 1,000 feet.
1,000 feet.
Anything further? Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
This time I'll open the public hearing. We have Kelly Harris signed up to speak on behalf of the applicant.
Good evening, Kelly Harris with Keystone Engineering, located at 923 South Lowry, here representing the owner tonight. 6th Avenue is a natural commercial corridor. There are CG properties a block and a half to the west, as Ryan mentioned, which have higher densities and allowed uses. The RT zoning district that is to the west is buffered by the large drainage channel along the shared property line. To the east is a doctor's office, which probably has higher traffic volume than most retail spaces. The neighbors to the south have already been accustomed to the fence along the south property line, and the homes in the immediate vicinity to the south are not owner-occupied. I know I can't speak to what is planned to this property, but as Ryan mentioned, due to the proximity of the school, a dispensary or a liquor store would not be allowed. The school is approximately 350 feet away. The two properties have been used in conjunction for some time. In order for this commercial corridor along 6th Avenue to happen as expected in the comprehensive plan, some extensions from the existing commercial properties in the area are going to happen. Do you have any questions for me?
Counselors? Doesn't sound like it. Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you.
I don't have anyone else signed up to speak on this item. So at this time, I'll close the public hearing, and I'll ask Ryan to let us know what the Planning Commission's recommendation is.
When the Planning Commission reviewed this item, they voted to recommend approval of this map amendment request by a vote of 5-0. Staff's recommendation is on par with the Planning Commission in this case.
Thank you, Ryan. Counselors, any questions at this point? Is there discussion or a motion?
Motion to accept Planning Commission's recommendation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to accept Planning Commission's recommendation on this matter. Please vote. With a vote of 4-0, that rezoning request is approved. Next up, we have item 7B, which is receive public comment regarding a request for a map amendment to rezone property addressed as 847 West Eskridge Avenue from small lot single-family residential to commercial shopping, CC-21-2002. Kimberly, did we have good notice?
Yes, we do.
Thank you. Ryan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. This map amendment request is at the corner of Washington and Eskridge. It's to rezone property from RSS to commercial shopping. The subject property in question is inside the purple hatch pattern here. You can see it sits essentially at the southeast corner of that intersection. The aerial here is looking across to the northeast for the property, with the subject property being inside the yellow polygon. You can see the elementary school to the north, as well as area that would now be part of O'Brate Stadium and the environs to the south. The comprehensive plan's future land use element, however, shows that this area would be part of the transition to the OSU campus, as well as a mix of residential. That's further indicated here. The subject property on the close-up of the land use map shows subject property inside the black hatch pattern, with OSU coming up to Eskridge and then residential to the west side of Washington. The street views indicate single-family residence. At the Planning Commission, it was noted that this has been a residential rental property for the last year approximately. Additional street views indicate how large the lot is, as well as access along Washington. The zoning map, however, indicates the subject property again inside the black hatch pattern, but shows the RSS not only for this lot, but surrounding properties, as well as RSL to the west side of Washington, public because of the school to the north, and then farther south, RT. Staff would note that the closest commercially zoned property in this case is approximately 1,040 feet to the south at McElroy, or 1,400 feet to the east in this case. Wide range on the zoning comparison chart between RSS and commercial shopping. Obviously, RSS is our most stringent zoning district residentially, whereas the commercial shopping opens a wide range of possibilities. Having said that, are there questions staff can answer at this time?
Counselors?
I'm sorry, I didn't see it on the map, but where is You said that it's greater than 1,000 feet to the next nearest commercial zoning. Where is that exactly? McElroy in Washington?
McElroy in Washington has commercial shopping zoning, correct?
There's not any commercial shopping
It-
there.
It would be, it's a
Baseball
commercial zoning
stadium,
district to the south at McElroy on the west side,
Okay.
according to the official zoning map.
Okay.
Otherwise, you're looking at 1,400 feet to the east there at Knobloch and Eskridge.
Can I ask why the zoning map isn't updated to reflect university use of basically all that land to the south and east?
That's a great question. When the ownership changed to the Board of Regents having title, the zoning map wasn't initiated by council or property owner direction to initiate a map amendment request. So the property stayed as RSS. They have control of the property, so they have the ability to do as they see fit. However, it was just a matter of housekeeping that was never done at the time. To initiate it at this point could be done either at the request of the university, if they ask the city, or the city council could direct staff to begin that rezoning process. Most likely to university zoning.
Yeah, I asked because you mentioned there's shopping zoning at McElroy and Washington, but I don't know which. I mean, three corners of that intersection are owned by the university, and one of them.
It's a very small sliver farther to the south.
Is it owned by the university at this point?
That I would have to check. That one I don't know.
Okay. Further questions of staff, counselors? Thank you, Brian. At this point, I will open the public hearing. Kelly Harris is here to speak again on behalf of the applicant.
Good evening, Kelly Harris with Keystone Engineering, located at 923, excuse me, South Lowry, here representing the owner again tonight. This property is the lone residential property that OSU Athletic Village did not purchase. It remained an owner-occupied home until it was sold to my client. It was offered to OSU first, but they didn't want to purchase it any longer. Since this is not owner-occupied anymore and an island, it is very unlikely that it will ever be owner-occupied again. We are proposing commercial zoning, like what is located at the northeast corner of the Athletic Village, and then a block to the south at Washington and McElroy. Since the university did not end up owning this property, the comprehensive plan is outdated in this area. We are trying to develop the property as the area around it has developed. Please note, if the university would have ended up purchasing this property, it would not have stayed residential either. Washington Street acts as a natural zoning dividing line. It's classified as a 4-lane minor arterial road, and the university and elementary school to the north act as a buffer and zoning line to the neighbors to the north of the elementary school. There is an existing light that controls pedestrian traffic across Washington Street. This property would be required to widen the existing sidewalk along Washington and then construct one along Eskridge. This would further improve the walkability of the area. Again, I would just note that a dispensary or liquor store would not be allowed on this property as well. Any questions for me?
Counselors? Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you.
I do have two others signed up to speak at public hearing on this item. First up, I have Trevor Fieldson.
Trevor Fieldson, 1024 Westfield Rogers Drive, in the neighbourhood adjacent to the said property. Did you guys get the pictures we sent of the property? I submitted them online.
I don't think we have them in the packet. Did we get pictures? Are they on the screen?
My understanding is they were going to get on the screen.
Could we help them get them up? If they're, oh. Anybody got pictures back there?
I do have a copy of them if you would like to
If you
see
have
them.
a paper, you can bring it.
All right.
Take a look.
Now, these are pictures of the properties shown in a different light to what the Mr. Hawkins showed. He was obviously showing the pictures after the ice storm when it was the middle of winter. These are taken the other day. Sure. Okay, these were taken the other day, and if you look at the pictures there, you can see the signs for the school zone. You can also see the picture of a school bus coming up the side of the property there between Will Rogers School and the property that they want to build a convenience store on. So, it is residential property. Now, what happened with this property was the lady that lived there didn't want to sell the house, and then she talked to Mike Holder, and he agreed to create a buffer there between the residential area, the school, and the parking lot. And that's existed for several years now. Now, apparently the property came up for sale at an inflated price of $600,000 or somewhere around there. And it was offered to Mike Holder, and Mike Holder says, well, I'm not paying $600,000 for a parking lot, which I understand. Because the residents of Will Rogers, Washington Heights neighborhood would have been quite pleased to, for the parking lot to extend. I mean, we have to put up with the noise pollution from the stadium, the light pollution, and that from OSU, the football games and those kind of things. But we're not too concerned about that because that's only for a short period of time. And we are big supporters of OSU anyway. So, but what we're concerned with is that when this happens, is that if we have a convenience store on the corner there, then it takes away the whole character of the neighborhood. I've lived in that neighborhood for 30 years. We brought our family up there, we walked to school. My wife worked at Will Rogers Elementary School for a while. She walked to school every day. Now, that is not a crosswalk light that they're talking about, so their facts are incorrect. That is a traffic light to control the traffic coming out of Will Rogers parking lot, coming down Will Rogers Drive and going along Washington. Now, if you're in the area over the summer, you'll see that there's a church 500 feet on the east side of the street there, and they walk children to Will Rogers all summer for breakfast and for lunch. So now you're going to throw a convenience store in there and create danger for young kids walking along the street there, crossing the road, increasing the traffic volume. As you can see from the pictures, there's a school bus coming up the street there. So it would really spoil the character of the neighborhood. There's no need for a convenience store. There's a convenience store north of there, where the main street and Lakeview are. And then someone emailed me the other day and said they're actually going to build a convenience store where Chuck's Paint and the Chinese restaurant are. So do we need a convenience store in a residential area? I don't think so. As for a commercial lot 1,000 feet from that property, I don't even see where there's room to put one there. I mean, because all that land is owned by OSU, and for them to bring that up, they're trying to bend the rules a little bit there to do that. So, I'm sure OSU wouldn't want a quick trip over. They want to build right on their property there, and we don't want one adjacent to our property there too. So, anyone have any questions?
Councilors? Thank you, Mr. Filson.
All right, thank you, appreciate it.
Next up, we have Gina Hellman.
Gina Hellman, 902 West Eskridge Avenue. I live directly across the street, across Washington from this property. I don't know if you're familiar with that neighborhood, but it's an old, established neighborhood with beautiful trees. Most of the homes are well landscaped. There's a lot of people who live in that neighborhood who are either OSU professors or work at OSU. The houses in that area directly across Washington are in the $200,000 to $300,000 range. It's everything north of this property is either the school or residential all the way up to Lakeview. So when they're talking about some of this area being commercial, there's nothing commercial there. There's OSU, which we have all gotten used to, and we love being able to walk to the baseball games. It's wonderful. But everything else is either the school or residential. And so for them to come in and put some sort of commercial thing in this area would just really destroy this property, which is multiple streets of very nice houses. And people are selling them. Some of them are becoming Airbnbs or short-term rentals. But the exciting thing about it is everybody's fixing them up. And some of these houses have really undergone a lot of work recently, and people are doing a great job. As Trevor shared, it's across the street from Will Rogers. Children do walk to school there, and we do have the light that helps people cross. But we only, even though Washington is considered a major or minor arterial, I don't remember what exactly you called it, it actually has very little traffic except at 8 in the morning, 5 in the afternoon, and when school starts and closes. Otherwise, it's just a relatively street, just like pretty much any other street. So for us, we feel like putting some sort of a commercial thing in that place would destroy our neighborhood and make it something that it would just become all rentals, is what it would be. And many of us are working hard to keep it from doing that. And actually, like my neighbor across the street, who would be the other person most impacted by this, hers is a rental, but she has set such high standards for who rents that house and she pays for the yard work and everything. So it's really been kept up nicely. And we'd be very disappointed if it changed the whole aspect of our neighborhood from what it is now to something with a commercial property right there. Any questions?
Any questions? Thank you so much. I don't have anyone else signed up to speak at the public hearing. So at this time, I'll close the public hearing, and I'll ask Ryan to come back and let us know what the Planning Commission thinks about this item.
So when Planning Commission reviewed this item, they voted 3-2 to recommend denial to the City Council based on the future land use map and the comprehensive plan and the idea that commercial zoned property in this location was not a good fit with that. Having said that, if you look in the staff report, we listed some alternatives. You can accept their recommendation and deny the application. You can reject the recommendation of the Planning Commission and approve the map amendment request. You can table the item to a date certain if you feel additional discussion or information is needed, or you can remand the item back to the Planning Commission for additional consideration.
Thank you,
Questions
Ryan.
of staff?
Staff, any questions for Ryan? Or excuse me, Council, any questions for staff or Ryan? All right, thank you, Ryan. Councilors, comments, motions, discussion?
I think these are tricky properties to discuss because, as Ms. Harris mentioned, it is kind of an island. So much has happened around this property that's not consistent with our zoning map or our future zoning map, and so it's kind of become an odd piece of property. However, it is also next to an established neighborhood, next to a school. I think those are important things to consider as we're thinking about this property and how it could be used in the future. I think what's concerning to me is the big jump from RSS to commercial and the things that would be allowed within commercial that, I mean, obviously, I think Mr. Harkins mentioned that, you know, we're going basically from one of our most restrictive zoning categories, classifications, to a much less stringent. There's lots of opportunity for a lot of different uses within commercial shopping. I wonder, given the kind of the different characteristics of this particular property, if it would benefit the owners, if they did want to do something unique or different here, to come back with a planned unit development that would help them kind of explain what they're trying to do and help Planning Commission, neighbors, us understand a little bit better about whether or not it's actually a good fit without actually rezoning the property to something that, you know, if the property were to change hands, could, you know, end up with an entirely ill-fitted use down the road. it just seems like, I think especially with the school, I think is something that I think about a little bit more. It would be good to have some more information before we gave kind of carte blanche for commercial use there.
Well, that was kind of my question as well. I mean, we can't, as we've said multiple times up here, can't take into account what the planned use of the land is when making these decisions and these zoning requests. But I wonder if there is some less, or more restrictive zoning designation that would fit with what the owners have in mind. I've been looking at this for days now, and this is a really interesting request. One of the more interesting ones I think that I've seen on my time in council, because at this point what we've got is kind of a residential island in the middle of university property that already has a use. I've personally never seen a request like this, so I've really tried to rack my brain on what the appropriate future use of this piece of land is, with all of the possibilities that come along with commercial shopping, commercial general, all of these different zoning designations we have. What is the right use of the land, and what are the possibilities with each zoning designation that we can look at? Generally speaking, I like the idea of the most restrictive zoning for the appropriate future uses of the land. I do have a little bit of concern about the broad commercial shopping designation, but again, that comes down to the question of, is there some more appropriate zoning designation that still gets, what the owners are looking at right now and also fits the appropriate use of future land use for this piece of property. With regards to the neighborhood, as I'm looking at the map and going through this, there is a natural barrier at Washington because, again, what we have here is more of a residential island, it seems, than anything else. And I do have concerns that Ms. Harris brought up, that if left to its own devices, I'm not sure that this is a properly zoned residential piece of property anymore. So again, all that to say, if there was a more restrictive zoning designation that would still, have the owners thought about all of the possibilities for what they want to do with this land, for one, and if so, if there is a more restrictive zoning designation, is that something that's going to fit in the long-term use of this in the broadest sense? So I personally don't have as many concerns about the rezoning of the property, but are we doing it in the most responsible way without throwing caution to the wind, so to speak? That's my only concern here. Because I think geographically, I do have concerns about just leaving it residential as it is. So
I would agree with those. I think it's great to be looking at something that could be done with that property and something that maybe unique could be done with that property. But commercial, I agree that I would like to see something a little more restrictive than commercial zoning. But also agree that residential is a little, it's not going to stay residential probably.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't fit our long-term land use map anymore, for sure. And I think left as it is, it's not going to remain a nice, beautiful single-family home. More likely than not, it becomes rental property. There's always the possibility that then it becomes as much of an eyesore as a underutilized home as it might in another zoning classification. So I think there's something that needs to be done here. I agree that I think just switching it from what it is now to commercial shopping on its own isn't long-term planning. It's just a reaction to what we can, it's just the kind of the fastest fix that we could throw in right now. I would much rather that we look at the area and try to figure out how can we connect this with something else, how can we do something that makes sense overall, because there's almost no possibility that it's ever going to connect to any other commercial shopping.
No, it's an
in
island.
the area.
But
Yeah, it's
whether,
going to be an island
regardless
one way or
of,
the other.
unless it becomes university, it's an island,
Yeah.
right? Whether it's zoned commercial or zoned residential, it's split
Yeah.
from everything else like it. But I do wonder, I know we can't compel it again, but if it would be appropriate in this instance, because it is such a unique parcel of land, for the applicant to consider coming in with a planned unit development. That way, that allows us to not rezone it, like you said, to kind of have that gut reaction or kind of reactive response to make it commercial shopping, to try to help remove that kind of island issue. But I think it also provides more information, more opportunity to talk about what's best there. Again, I keep going back to the fact that the school is across the street, and that we do need to be mindful and intentional about the development that we allow there.
Yep.
Mayor, I do think I need to remind you at this time about the reapplication moratorium. The reapplication moratorium, because the public hearing has already been convened, if the applicant were to either withdraw their application or you were to deny it, it will prevent them from submitting for the same relief. And if they were to bring a PUD that would give them substantially the same use as what was previously withdrawn, this type of zoning category, it would be prohibited, just as a reminder.
For a year.
Yes,
Correct.
that's right.
Yeah.
A PUD, that would fall under that moratorium?
Yes, 2358I is pretty clear that if the planned unit development map amendment that would permit substantially the same use as what was previously denied or withdrawn, it's prohibited. That's why I wanted to remind you of that.
And it's a full year.
A year from the date either the application is withdrawn or a year from the date the council takes action to deny.
And Ryan, I don't know if the applicant hasn't provided an alternative request other than this rezoning?
Correct, they have not.
Okay. All right, well, we've had the public hearing. Did I close the public hearing? I did close the public hearing. We do have the item on the agenda, and we need a decision to do something one way or the other. Is there a motion on the item, councilors?
Well, those are not very good choices.
I know.
If left between the two, I will make the motion to go against the Planning Commission's recommendation and to rezone the lot to commercial shopping.
You're moving to reject the recommendation and to approve the application?
Correct.
Is there a second? Hearing no second, the motion fails. Are there any other motions on the item?
What happens if we table? I'm trying to think of other ways to support a further conversation.
It can be tabled, and it can be remanded to the Planning Commission for further discussion, if there is further discussion to be had. I don't really know how it affects the moratorium.
Sure, you could table it or remand it if you need additional information to make your decision, but again, depending on what comes back, we're still in the same position that this is the relief that they've applied for, and to bring something else back, they would either have to withdraw or you would have to take action on this request. So,
Would the moratorium, this is like parsing words, but they've requested commercial shopping. If they came back with a PUD and requested commercial general, would that be in line with the moratorium, or would that be different?
well, so because they have requested, let me say, Ryan, I might need your help on this, commercial shopping, and that is what we have noticed. You could today, in fact, approve a lesser included commercial category as long as it is something that's a less intensive use. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
And as a point of information for the council, the subject property is 0.85 acres, which is under the 1 acre minimum for PUDs. So
It has to be at least an acre to be able
That's
to do a
that's
PUD?
right.
Correct.
It's how many point, yeah, so it's
1
not,
acre.
it is below the minimum.
Are there further motions on the item?
I will move to accept Planning Commission's recommendation to deny the application to rezone to commercial shopping.
Is there a second?
I second that.
We have a motion and a second to accept the Planning Commission's recommendation and deny the application for rezoning. Please vote. With a vote of 3-1, with Councilor Wedlight voting no, the motion passes. Thank you all for being here. The next item on the agenda is item 8 under general orders. 8A is approve a purchase to replace the existing VoIP telephone models and authorize total project expenditures not to exceed $113,650. Mr. Stewart.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, councilors, and my esteemed colleagues. Here this evening to ask for approval for the replacement of our aging telephone handsets. These are our desktop phones across the entire organization, approximately 400 devices in all. Last fiscal year, the city upgraded the back-end equipment of our Cisco voice over IP telephone system, servers, software, licensing, but these endpoint telephone devices were not included in that upgrade. The replacement of these endpoint devices was planned for this fiscal year. These phones are approaching 9 years of age, and they're starting to fail frequently. Beyond the failure of the devices, there's also a great benefit we'll see with new devices, and that is in our network speeds. In our network configuration, network connectivity actually passes through our desktop telephones and then on to our desktop computers. And the older phones are limited in their network speeds, and the new phones will allow us to take full advantage of faster network capabilities that we've gained from recent network upgrades. IT staff has been researching and evaluating compatible telephone models, and we have a plan for replacement, which would include a mixture of standard desk phones, video phones, and conference phones. All the equipment that we're proposing is quoted from existing state contracts already competitively awarded by the state of Oklahoma. Funding for this project was included in our FY 21-22 capital improvement plan in the amount of $125,000, and these funds are currently available in the IT budget. So I do have a recommendation. I'd be happy to answer any questions at this point.
Councilors, any questions? What's your recommendation, Brett?
I'm requesting a motion to approve staff's recommendation to replace existing voice over IP telephone models and authorize total project expenditures not to exceed $113,650, which does include a 15% contingency.
Thank you, sir. Councilors, questions, comments, or motion?
Motion to approve staff's recommendation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the staff's recommendation. Please vote. With a vote of 4-0, that purchase is approved. Item 8B, authorize the lease purchase of 2 new fire engines. Chief Essery is here to tell us about that.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, Terry Esri, Fire Chief. So I'm here tonight to ask for approval for the replacement of 2 aging fire engines. The engines that are up for replacement were purchased pre-owned in 2009, and they are at the end of their useful life as frontline fire apparatus. The 2 engines up for replacement have been out of service over 80 days in the last 24 months and becoming maintenance intensive, and were not designed to carry the multitude of equipment that is now standard on our frontline fire engines. Our fire engines are the backbone of our fire fleet, and replacing these engines would allow us to design replacements that have adequate storage for all of our medical, hazardous materials equipment, and firefighting equipment, to further develop a clean cab program that is designed to separate contaminated gear from our firefighters on their way back home from incidents, to integrate the most innovative safety features into the replacements which make responses safer for our firefighters and, of course, for our citizens, and to standardize our vehicles for efficiency of operations, maintenance, and safety. In June, a committee of fire officers began researching possible replacement options, and the committee set forth a set of minimum standards that possible manufacturers would have to meet. And in addition to the committee's minimum standards, I set forth additional standards that equipment would need to meet based on the vision for the future for our fire department. We used HGAC, which is Houston Galveston Area Consortium, works like state contract in that to make sure that we were getting the best price for the city. And it's a national consortium, again, works like state contract in that the products and services they offer are contracted after having been subjected to a competitive bid process. I do have a recommendation, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Counselors? What's your recommendation, Chief?
Stillwater Fire recommends to authorize the lease purchase of 2 new fire engines from Pierce Manufacturing at a purchase amount of $1,398,570 using the SUA's Master Equipment Lease Purchase Agreement with Bank of America, and to authorize the city manager, general manager, to sign related documents.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Melissa, maybe this question's for you, but where does this money come out of the budget?
Well, this money is budgeted every year as debt service, and so it is just through the budgeting process. And it's my understanding, because this is a master lease purchase agreement that is the SUA's, it could be that we have to do some shifting of funds around, but that you will need to take action in the SUA meeting to ratify the use of that particular lease purchase line of credit.
Okay. And these will show up in the 2022 budget in terms of the...
Yeah. Chief Esri, when do we expect these?
December of 2022.
Okay, so they'd be in that next fiscal year's budget.
The 23 budget, yeah.
Okay.
Christie is, okay.
Counselors, any further questions? Is there a motion?
Motion to approve staff recommendation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the staff's recommendation to lease purchase these two new fire engines. Please vote. With a vote of 4-0, that request is approved. Always happy to see the fire department with new adequate equipment, keeping everybody safe.
Hopefully one of those new fire engines goes into a new fire station soon.
Good point. That takes us to item 8C, the first quarter financial report. Christy Clark.
Good evening, Christy Cluck, Finance Director, and I am here to provide an overview of our first quarter financial report for the fiscal year 22. And I'm going to keep it brief because, quite simply, we're very early in the year, and probably more importantly, staff has no budgetary concerns at this time. I'll start with our revenues. Organization-wide, our revenues are doing very well and are on track to meeting our budget projections. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say in some instances we may exceed our budget projections if our first quarter trends continue on throughout the rest of the fiscal year. Specifically, our sales and use tax combined, which is our largest funding source in the general fund, is at 27.7% of budget at the close of the first quarter. Our utility sales in the SUA are at 33.4%. And then our energy payments from the Grand River Dam Authority are at 56.6% of budget. And that's due to the Stillwater Energy Center being dispatched to operate significantly more than what was originally projected. I do want to note that revenue is offset by an increase in our natural gas expenditures. And if you will remember, on October 18th, the SUA trustees approved budget amendments to account for that increased activity. Our lodging tax is at 40.3% of budget.
Wow.
That's good news. And then our airport fees and rentals are at 47.2% of budget. And this is really just a overall increase in activity that we're seeing at the airport. So it's really hitting multiple revenue sources that they have. On the expenditure side, I'm happy to say I have nothing unusual to report. So across the organization, our operating and maintenance expenditures are at about 20% of the budget at this time. And then finally, our capital projects are progressing. However, just by nature of capital projects, they progress each at their own pace. I will note that we have experienced some difficulties in delays in shipments of materials, in some cases some inability to place orders for materials and equipment, and then we've also seen some increases in costs. And so those things are impacting various projects in various different ways. But on pages 13 through 17 of the report, there is a complete list of all capital projects and also includes the year-to-date expenditures and our open encumbrances. Are there any questions?
Just out of curiosity, the lodging tax, you said it was at 40.3%. How does that typically trend in other years? I know football season brings lots of people in. Are we ahead of where we typically are in prior years?
We are. One thing that makes that look so high is that this year we reduced our budget projections just because last year it was a rough year for lodging tax. And so we were being very conservative, and we actually made a reduction of, I want to say, $200,000 in our projections.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And our sales and use tax numbers for the last few months have been record highs.
Record high,
most
yes.
of those months, right?
Yes.
That's good news. It's always good to hear that revenues above projections and expenditures are below projections. That's
Yes.
That's a sign of a good financial situation. Councilors, other questions? Are there any major expenditures you see coming up, or any things coming down the road that we need to have advance notice of?
We did receive our ARPA grant funds, half of that, so that's a little over $4 million. And I'm sure we'll be bringing some action before the council before too long. We'll also have our payment to GRDA for our share of our winter storm costs, but that's already budgeted and encumbered. If you remember, that was a little over $7 million in total, and we're absorbing half of that and then passing on half of that to our customers over a 36-month period.
Well, I'll just again commend you all on the report itself. For those of you out there who are interested in city finances, and I hope you are, this report is a really good, clear breakdown of where the money comes from, where it goes. There's a great glossary at the back that explains some of the terms. I don't know if that's new or not, but
It's been there for a while.
Okay,
Yeah,
well.
it was a late edition, but it's been there for a while.
yeah, I think it's great. Really, really helpful from a transparency perspective. This is a wonderful thing for the community to be able to get a good handle on where the money is, where it goes, and how it gets spent. So we appreciate the clarity and the transparency of these reports.
Thank you. And that will be available on our website likely tomorrow.
Excellent. Councilors, any further questions? Thank you, Christy.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. Next up, item 8D, approve recommendation to reject bids to construct a nature learning trail on the west side of Lake McMurtry. Mr. McClenny.
Good evening, John McClenny, Special Projects. In 2020, the Lake McMurtry Friends received a Recreation Trails grant for Lake McMurtry. The grant program is a $300,000 project with a 80% grant funds and 20% match provided by the project sponsor. City Council has previously approved the matching funds of $60,000. We received 3 bids for the project, and all were over the available budget. And we are recommending a motion to reject all the bids for the Lake McMurtry Friends Trail Grant Project, and staff and the Lake McMurtry Friends are going to work with our design consultant to modify the design and rebid the project.
Does this cause any jeopardy to the availability of the grant itself?
No, we're still on track with that.
Okay. Do we feel like we can make some modifications and get it under, or is this just like everything's more expensive
We've
now?
already looked at a couple of things in terms of materials and some nice to haves, but not absolutely necessary, that we think we can get it within the budget.
Well, I believe, if I recall, this particular trail was meant to be an accessible trail. Will it maintain that accessibility?
Yes.
Were we really far over budget?
Well, the lowest bid was $317,000, which is $17,000 over the grant, but we've already spent roughly $45,000 on the design, so we would need $62,000-ish to cover this.
In the packet, there's the base bid and then the additives, alternative 1 and 2. Are those numbers in addition to the base bid, or is that if we did option 1? Does that make sense?
The alternates are the total project, so it wouldn't be another 300 and whatever $1,000. That would be the total project for the alternates.
Okay. Well, because for like bright lighting construction, it says additive alternate number 1 is only $16,000. So I assume that's just $16,000 more
right
above their base bid.
Right.
Okay. Well, how does, I assume the Lake McMurtry folks are, not happy about this, but they understand what's going on.
Yeah, we've talked to them and talked to tourism about the grant, and so everybody's on the same page.
Okay. Councilors, further questions? Is there a motion on the item?
Motion to reject all bids for the Lake McMurtry Friends Recreational Trail Grant Project.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to reject the bids. Please vote. With a vote of 4-0, that item is approved. Thank you, John.
Hopefully
We
we'll
look
be
forward
back
to
soon
seeing
to
it back.
award the bids.
Thank you. Item 8E is a COVID-19 update. I don't have a whole lot to update here. Numbers are getting better. That's a good thing. Vaccine numbers are continuing to rise. That's also a good thing. Hopefully, when we passed a resolution asking people to follow CDC guidance and continue to wear masks whether they were vaccinated or not, that's based on the CDC's high or moderate or high or substantial spread in the community. Our numbers on those metrics have been coming down. Hopefully we get out of those high and moderate spread categories and we can go back to only asking unvaccinated people to wear masks as we were before. But other than that, the hospital numbers are not great, but certainly better than they were several weeks ago. So we appreciate the community's assistance in helping control the spread of COVID-19 and hope that we will continue to do so moving forward, and hope to see continued improvement in the situation. That's all I have on that item. So we'll move to item 9, ordinances. On second read, we have ordinance 3483, an ordinance closing a 15-foot water line easement located in the southeast corner of section 18, township 19 north, range 2 east of the Indian Base and Meridian, city of Stillwater, Payne County, Oklahoma, on property addressed as 5200 West 6th Avenue. Is there a motion on the
Motion to adopt ordinance number 3483.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt the ordinance. Please vote. With a vote of 4-0, ordinance 3483 is now adopted. Item 10, reports from officers and boards. Melissa.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to take this opportunity on behalf of the city to thank the over 130 first responders that helped this weekend with the walk around and the Sea of Orange parade. I think it was a wonderful weekend for all the people that participated. And our Chief Watts is quoted as saying, "Our hope is that all attendees of America's greatest homecoming enjoy themselves, create special memories with family and friends, and return home safely." And that truly is the wish from all of your staff here at the city. Again, we had a great weekend, but it wouldn't have been made possible without our police and our fire and our emergency management and our public works.
Absolutely. It's a huge, huge undertaking, and so many people contribute to making sure it goes smoothly, and it did, and that's wonderful. Thank you for that. Ms. Carnley, I skipped you. Do you have anything to announce?
Nothing to report.
Thank you so much. Councilor Hawkins.
The holiday season is rapidly approaching, and that means it's time to start thinking about holiday shopping. We are encouraging all residents and visitors to shop Stillwater this year. When you choose to support small businesses, you are helping your neighbors build a strong community that you can be proud to call home. Follow the City of Stillwater on social media for updates on local events and opportunities to support Stillwater businesses all winter long.
Amen. Thank you. Councilor Woodlake.
Yes, sir. Stillwater has recently experienced a few rounds of severe weather, with many of these storms moving in overnight. Be sure to have multiple ways to receive severe weather warnings to protect you and your family. Follow City of Stillwater Emergency Management, SEMA, on Facebook and Twitter for important updates and information.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Jaloski.
The Stillwater Public Library's 100th year anniversary is in 2023. The library is asking residents to complete a 10-minute survey to help them plan how to celebrate the past and prepare for its next 100 years. You can find the survey online at tinyurl.com/SPL100TH100th, or request a copy in the library to get a chance to win a $50 gift card to a local merchant. Exciting, 100 years.
100 years, that's great. I get the social media announcement. Starting today, residents will see an exciting change in the City of Stillwater's communications. The city is changing its hashtag. Councilor Woodlake, did you know we had a hashtag?
I did not.
It's changing. Usually we use hashtag STWOK, and now we're going to be using hashtag SWO, or SWO, which of course is our airport code, SWO. The new hashtag will have several variations, such as Shop SWO, Work SWO, and Love SWO, that can be used to promote city services, encourage investment in our local economy, and unite the community. Residents are encouraged to use the hashtags to connect with the city and promote what they love about living in Stillwater.
Thank you for the update, sir, and calling me out.
I expect you to be using those, Councilor Woodlake. Are there any other items, or is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn the city council meeting. Please vote. With a vote of 4-0, the city council meeting is now adjourned.
Too slow.
At this time, I will call to order the November 1st, 2021 meeting of the Stillwater Utilities Authority. First up, we have a consent docket. Councilors, questions, comments, or a motion?
Motion to approve the consent docket.
Second.
Motion and a second. Please vote. With a vote of 4-0, the consent docket is approved. Next up, on general orders, item 5A is an update on the proposed recycling center. Mr. Chris Knight.
Good evening. Chris Knight, Waste Management Director. I wanted to give everyone a quick review and update of the recycling staging facility, what we've been doing over the last couple of years and where we're at right now. So if everyone remembers, Cedar Creek, our current process or the contract ends in June 30th, 2022. And I apologize, that seems kind of hard to see. The Recycling Task Force recommended to the trustees on February 24, 2020 to build a recycling staging facility. Then on December the 7th, the trustees approved a rate increase to fund the construction of the facility. Then we identified a location for the facility, which we identified the locations out by the airport, adjacent to the airport, next to the waste management current facility. We completed a design for the construction of the recycling station facility. We received the FAA approval on July 27, 2021. Due to being on airport land, we had to have their approval. Then we had the pandemic, which increased the material cost, which that's what I want to discuss tonight. We did receive an updated engineer's cost estimate August 11th, 2021. And then through the whole process, we were approached by Republic Services with a different idea for a solution for our problem. And then I recently met with the Recycling Task Force on October 19th to discuss this. So just a quick review, and this is an old picture, but this is the reason we started down the road that we were going down. This is our current processor's facility, and these are some of the issues that we're having that kind of led us to look for a different direction. And I want to stress, this is an old picture. We had several meetings with the Recycling Task Force, the appointed members of the community. There's the rate increase that was approved on December the 7th. In fiscal year 2021, there was 11.5% rate increase. Then also approved to come in 2023 as a 4%. This is a picture of the design of the facility that we have designed. Here's where the recycling would go, and this is a little office and a storage shed, and it's completely fenced. NewGen, who did our rate study, so back in 2019 or early 2020, they did an estimate for the construction of the facility, and it was $1.6 million before the pandemic. Due to material costs and everything, we thought it'd be a good idea to kind of see what it's going to cost us now. So Tricor, who designed our facility, did a up-to-date cost estimate for the construction of the facility for us. It actually came in at $3.8 million, but they had a couple options in there that I removed, and that got it down to a little over $3.1 million. And as I said, through this whole process, we were approached by Republic Services with a potential solution. They have offered to construct a facility to store the city's of Stillwater recycling, transport it to a MRF of our choice. It would be our agreement between us and the MRF, and then in the process, accept the city of Stillwater's yard waste and utilize it as cover at the landfill. And when I met with the Recycling Task Force, they were very open to either this potential proposal or another one, something that would be a lot cheaper than what we're looking at currently. And this is a picture of just an example of what Republic Services had proposed to build. They would build this at their landfill. They wouldn't be up on the hill at the landfill. It would be down by the scale house. So something similar to this, to where we would just dump our recycling in it, and then they would load it and transport it to the MRF for us. Similar to what we're doing now with our current processor, other than we're getting it to a location of MRF that we know that it's actually the right thing is being done with it. I do have a recommendation, but I'm open to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Chris. Trustees?
Did the Recycling Task Force, so they looked at the Republic proposal and another option, you said? Or?
But no, they just, I presented where we're at right now with the inflation of costs for the recycling station facility, which they recommended to you. And this other option, just to demonstrate to them that there may be a cheaper option for us. Their whole objective, even way back in 2019, 2020, was to be able to get the community's recycling to a true MRF. At the time, at all the options we went through, because we didn't have this option, the recycling station facility was the best option that, or they felt it was the best one at the time. With an option similar to this one, and or another option similar to this, it meets the objective that they were set out to accomplish.
I can't recall, it's been a little while. Was the convenience collection, the current convenience collection, going to be relocated to this new recycling facility?
Possibly. I mean, it was in there to possibly be moved out there. It was not 100% decided whether we were going to do that or not. And we didn't know a lot about what we could do, to be honest with you, until we visited with the FAA, which I might say took for a long time. And so the facility that's designed is something they approved, and really from my conversations, and the airport director, Mr. Prigel, helped me out a lot, but it has to be totally enclosed, and everything has to happen inside, or they're not, not for it. And so we'd have to put what we're doing at the Convenience Collection Center inside that building also. So that's why I say yes, potentially.
But probably not within that, even the 3.18, that would that have included the convenience collection center?
We believe that we could put the whole facility inside there. It is going to be big enough. And that was another option we looked at, is cutting back the size of the building and not putting the convenience collection center in there. It didn't change the cost a whole lot, but it would come down even a little bit more. Another thing that we were looking to do out there was to compost our yard waste out there, and the FAA denied that. So we definitely have to look for somewhere to take our yard waste, either to keep taking it to our current processor, Cedar Creek Farms, or take it to the Republic Services landfill.
And we got, did OSU get their incinerator?
They did get
gasifier.
Yes.
So
They
it's
did
a portion,
get their funding.
a portion, not, they weren't going to be able to collect all of our.
No, it was like 2 tons
Yeah, it
a
was
day
a
or something like that.
a
but-
small amount.
Yeah. But they did get their funding, and we were starting to meet on that and kind of work out all the details on that.
Would that impact at all any agreement with Republic that some of it would be diverted to that gasifier?
I don't believe so. No, it would not.
So what would the agreement with Republic, or, what are these other options? I mean, how would this be paid for, and what would the general cost of doing this be?
Well, our preliminary numbers, it'd be paid with the current rate increase that's already taken place in 2021, 11.5%. We don't
Sorry,
have.
I'm going to interrupt just a little bit here, because the proposal is actually that we put this out to an RFP so that we can comply with our city purchasing policy. So to the extent that Chris is talking about preliminary numbers, it might be putting some of the responders at a disadvantage at this point, because the next step is just to advertise the RFP so that they can respond.
Okay, I gotcha. So without giving me numbers, the idea here would be that, is it like a monthly payment we make to them for whoever does this, or do we pay them, is it a yearly contract, or what's the, what would the structure be, I guess is my question.
It could be monthly payments, quarterly payments, but yes, there would be a long-term agreement.
Okay.
So it'd be something similar to what we have now, other than it would be going to another facility and then being transported to a MRF.
Correct.
As opposed to here, it's going to Cedar Creek, which is not, and then either staying for a while or hopefully being transported to other places for reuse.
I guess the point of my question is the cost of, if we're looking at it, doing basically a new RFP to replace the same function we have now with Cedar Creek, do we anticipate this is going to be substantially more expensive for somebody else? Do we feel like it's going to be about what we're paying now? Do you have any sense of what that range would look like?
Well, it would be over time definitely more money than we're currently paying our current processor. However, it'll be a lot cheaper than building the recycling station facility, buying the equipment, hiring the additional people, and then the maintenance of the facility building the recycling station facility is probably a 20 or 30 year commitment, really.
Yeah.
the current proposal, you know, or proposals like the one I received would come with a potential up to 10-year agreement. And at that point, or 5-year, whatever we can do, we can walk away. You know, we're not stuck forever.
So at the time this was discussed earlier, did we not either think that was going to be an option to just find a different processor, or we didn't feel like this was an option?
We didn't have this option on the table when the recycling task force met.
Okay.
We had looked at initially hauling this off ourselves as one of our options. if
We
memory
looked at
serves.
hauling it ourselves.
But not to have a third party haul it to the MRF for us.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. If I remember correctly, all the options we had was us hauling it, building a recycling staging facility, not doing recycling at all, and there was even a subscription-based solution that was Recyclops, if I remember correctly.
So at this point, we just need to figure out how much is it going to cost us to try to do this thing, to have a different transporter take
Correct.
it for us to replace Cedar Creek.
We feel there's definitely other options out there that would be a lot cheaper than the route we was going down. And so that's why I'm asking to do that RFP to see what we can get back as far as someone that's willing to store our recycling and transport it to the MRF that we choose. But in the same process, go ahead and do the RFP for the MRF so we can go ahead and have everything done. And then once we receive back the submittals for storing and transporting our recycling, we'll also know what MRF we want to go to at the same time.
So effectively, there's two rates. One would be the MRF, accepting our waste stream, our recyclables, and then the folks that would originally store it and then transport it. Right.
Correct.
So the two RFPs
Two
for
different
that for that
RFPs.
reason.
Okay. And then if we were to go down that road, the staging facility just kind of sits by, we're not going to pursue that in the meantime?
No, we'll wait and see what we get back, and then I'll come back to the trustees and let you know what we found, and if there was a proposal that we see that's a better option, and have some hard numbers.
Okay.
Chris, do you intend to meet with the recycling task force again once you have these numbers back?
That's my intention, yes.
Anything further, trustees? So what's your recommendation for us, Chris?
Motion to approve staff request to issue an RFP for the storage and transporting of recycling materials to a materials recovery facility of the city's choice, and an RFP for processing of the recyclables by a materials recovery facility.
Thank you, Chris. Trustees?
Motion to accept staff's recommendation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the issuance of 2 RFPs. Please vote. With a vote of 4-0, that item's approved. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Looking forward to seeing the results. Okay, item 5B is authorize the lease purchase of 2 new fire engines. I don't know that Chief Esri needs to give us the whole proposal again.
I definitely could.
Verbatim.
Yeah, I absolutely can. And again, I would be happy to answer any questions that you might have thought of.
I don't know if it's a question for you or for Melissa, but why are we approving this on both agendas? The money's coming out of the SUA?
The line of credit or the lease purchase agreement is truly an SUA agreement with Bank of America. And so we need you to ratify this over in the SUA as well.
I got it.
And give us a DO's approval.
Trustees, any questions for Chief? Is there a motion on the item?
Motion to authorize the lease purchase agreement in the amount of $1,398,570 for the SUA's master equipment lease with Bank of America.
And
And to authorize the city manager and general manager to sign the related documents.
Thank you. Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the lease purchase and to authorize the city manager and general manager to sign the related documents. Please vote. With a vote of 4-0, that is approved. Thank you, Chief.
The code requires a specific finding in the minute, otherwise they can't get
Never
those
argue law with a
executed. Yep.
Are there any reports from the officers or the board? Is there a motion to adjourn the SUA?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
With a motion and a second to adjourn the SUA, please vote. With a vote of 4-0, we're now adjourned. That concludes our meetings for the evening. Thank you.